industry is paying lots of attention in using feed mitigants in the swine business, right? So when you use feed mitigants, you are just trying to control any pathogens that could be transferred through the feed, from the feeding meal to the systems, to the herd. So then may affect the pigs and cause disease, right? So those feed mitigants may control those pathogens, may eliminate those pathogens in the feed during the processing, or even just minimize, decreasing the load of those pathogens. On the way, they're not able to cause any disease when the pigs consume that feed.
Hi, welcome to our latest edition of Swine It Podcast. I'm Jerry Purvis, your host. Today we have a very distinguished guest, Dr. Francisco Domingues. Dr. Domingues and I crossed paths many times in the past, and I really enjoy talking to someone. He's got he's a veterinarian, he's got a PhD in swine nutrition, so he's got a lot of holistic perception of any problem that we're trying to solve here in the swine industry. So very good to have him here today. And Francisco, welcome to our podcast today.
My pleasure, Jerry. Thanks for having me here.
I'd like to maybe just take a few minutes to tell our listeners, kind of how you got to where you are and what you're doing today and how you got there.
Definitely. So, Jerry, I started over 25 years ago in Brazil, getting my veterinary bachelor. And afterwards, I still in Brazil got my PhD in swine nutrition. And from there, I started having opportunities across the globe. So I spent some time in Russia working with feed production, and also with swine production. I think that was a large system. And afterwards, I had the opportunity to come to the US as well, understanding better the North America swine industry, and from here traveling through the globe. And then lately, I also spent a few years in Vietnam. So it was really a great experience in there, understanding the systems in there, how the Asian culture work behind the scenes regarding swine production, so on and so forth. So down the road has been a great experience. It's a great time.
Feed is a fomite for swine viruses, and studies have shown that specific ingredients, matrices, can enhance virus survival. Preventing virus transmissions through contaminated feed is achievable with proper protocols in place. Preventing ASF infection with the 3500 sow operation can save an operation's $60.5 million. Feed sanitation ensures that clean feed moves throughout feed production and remains pathogen-free until consumption. Both Terminate and Thineo have been evaluated against viruses and found to be effective in reducing the viral load in feed and preventing clinical disease. Contact a clean feed expert to learn more today.
Francisco, it's as I said, you have a lot of experiences that we could talk about today, but I think today we want to focus on maybe your expertise in feed mitigants. And maybe just to get started, maybe some of our listeners, what exactly is a feed mitigant and what are we trying to control with these mitigants?
Good. That's a good point, Jerry. So lately, the industry is paying lots of attention in using feed mitigants in the swine business, right? So when you use feed mitigants, you are just trying to control any pathogens that could be transferred through the feed, from the feeding meal to the systems, to the herd. So then may affect the pigs and cause disease, right? So those feed mitigants may control those pathogens, may eliminate those pathogens in the feed during the processing, or even just minimize, decreasing the load of those pathogens. On the way, they're not able to cause any disease when the pigs consume that feed.
Very good. And Francisco, what are some of these or more important pathogens that our industry are trying to control?
Yeah. So let's say when you talk about pathogens that could contaminate the pigs through the feed, we must understand that's nothing new for the poultry industry, right? So because they know this very well, they have been facing issues with salmonella, for instance, for many, many years, and they have been learning how to use those feed mitigants and to take a great advantage out of it. So when you transfer this to the swine thing. So we must understand that we have two groups of pathogens in there that can bring challenge for us at the farm level. So we are saying about bacteria and also some viruses that can hurt our systems. So, but when you say about the first group, the bacterial one, we must understand that is not very common being discussing these in the swine production, because when you say about Salmonella, E. coli, for instance, those pathogens at the farm level, those are controlled by the use of vaccines. So that then becomes very difficult for us to say what is the contribution of those pathogens for the contamination through the feed. So that's a little bit challenging for us. So that's why we don't pay attention too much when we consider bacteria as a big challenge for contamination for infecting the swine through the feed. Okay. On the other hand, when you say about viruses, so we know already that the feed work as a fomite for viruses for many years, right? I think before 90s, we learned that already when we found some virus already in the feed. I mean, avian virus and swine virus, so on and so forth. But definitely, a few years ago, let's say 2013 precisely, right? When we got some PED breaks in Asia and then all over the place in here in North America. So then the industry started understanding that such pathogen could be very tricky for the swine production, mainly because just a few years later we found it very present in the feed. So this virus has been isolated in the feed, and then just a couple of years later we understood also that pigs, when they consume those contaminated feed, they'll get sick. So that's clear to us that some virus can be transferred to the feed. But that does not stay only with the PD. So we also can mention clearly lately about the PRRS. Also has been proven if you have PRRS virus in the feed and pigs consume the feed, they will also get sick. And Seneca virus the same. So, and for sure, I think one of the most relevant lately, because of those challenges that has been bringing to us, that is the SF virus, right? So the SF virus is really has been a big issue for us across Asia, nowadays in Europe as well, and now we hope that never comes to North America. So that's why we always must be in the preventive side. So we understood already that's proven the virus can be found in the feed, and the virus, when found in the feed, can infect the pigs if the pigs consume that feed. So I think it's very clear to us the risk that those pathogens represent to our operations across the globe.
Yeah, that's very interesting. PED, we always thought PED, PRRS, now ASF, predominantly didn't think about feed as being a vector, a fomite carrying disease, and we just focused on, other ways of the animals, the personnel, and how it's walked into a farm, but never really focused on, the feed until recently, as you said, now. And, these diseases really determine our profitability. If we have good health, generally we have good production. If we have bad health, it doesn't matter how well we do things, how well we're executing our production techniques. We're going to have poor performance. And so that's a good point. I think it's something that personally has been of interest more so lately, as you said, ASF, now thinking about how we're going to, that would be devastating to our industry. But these other diseases that's been around, PRRS cost us, 600 so million a year, just very expensive diseases to our industry. So what are the benefits if we put these, as we said, we understand now more recently that we actually can transmit through the feed. So how does this work with these mitigants, and how do they perform that and so deactivate these pathogens?
Very, very, very good point. So, Jerry, look at that. As soon as we have any risk of our feed get contaminated, we must understand that that's important. That we should use a feed mitigant. So let's say the feed can get contaminated on different ways. So first of all, we are talking about biosecurity. So when you say about biosecurity, in our systems, we must understand that knowing that the feed can be a threat to our system if it's carrying viruses, for instance. So then controlling sanitizing the feed can also be an important part of our biosecurity system. So then we have different ways that feed can represent a challenge to us. For instance, we can have some raw materials that could be prior contaminated to mixing to include that in the feed. So at the same time, we have the biosecurity in the feed mill. So, for instance, what do we control the personnel or the vehicles, the trucks that are coming to our feed mill, so on and so forth? Because inside of the feed mill, for sure, we can have those viruses coming. We can have the feed contaminated in there, and that's why before talking about the feed mitigants, we always thought that just using the heat treatment, we could be just protect regarding any virus contamination, for instance. But lately, we have seen some research that showed to us that some viruses can be resistant up to 100 Celsius degrees in the feed. So that means the pellet processing is no longer capable to eliminate those viruses. Then, knowing that we have some risks of having those viruses in there through the raw materials or through some biosecurity breeds in the feed mill or trucks, so on and so forth. So then we must understand, we must have the feed mitigant in there. So when you say about that, first of all, we must understand the feed mitigant must be able to eliminate the virus, to control the virus in the feed. So then we have seen several trials where we contaminate the feed, and at the same time, when you use the feed mitigant in that contaminated feed, can be with the PRRS, with PD, or Seneca virus, for instance. So when we feed the pigs with that contaminated feed, pigs will not get sick because the feed mitigant has been capable to eliminate, to damage all of those cells in there, all of those viruses in there. So that's very important to understand how to use the feed mitigant and what feed mitigant we are planning to use. So that's the first step. We validate that the feed mitigant can do the job. The second step is for how long the feed mitigant can do the job. Because we are saying here, firstly, regarding a possible contamination inside of the feed mill. But from the feed mill until the farm, we still have a long way to go, right? We are talking about transportation, even biosecurity breaching inside of the farm or during the delivery, so on and so forth. So then we must understand the residual effect or protection of that feed mitigant. So making sure the feed is still protected after delivering to the farm until the pigs consume it. So that's the point. So the feed mitigant should ensure to us the security, the proper security of the feed whole way through, from the production, from the processing of the feed mill until the feeders. So that's the target.
Very good points. I think as being in a round feed mill, I understand there's a lot, as you point out, a lot of avenues for how that can be contaminated through ingredients, through people, and there can be cross-contamination. We might do a good job sterilizing here, and then we get down there. And, it's funny how it seems a lot of times we have a break, and we cross and we look at all the biosecurity that we have, and we seem to be doing everything correctly, but then we have a break and then another break. And so I think a lot of times we've actually predicted that maybe feed was a mitigant in the past, but just didn't have proof. So I think it's good now that we kind of can focus and moving into that point. Do you think that's a part of, you're seeing a lot of these large integrators considering using that as a part of their biosecurity?
Oh, yes, definitely. I think lately all of those large enterprises can understand the need of using the feed mitigant. For sure, alguns are going faster than others. But let's say we have already very strong case or examples in the market that we may use feed mitigants in the feed. So, for instance, just a couple of years ago was published a paper. Actually, that was a nice case, a large enterprise in Mexico. They got a 10,000 sows farm broke with PD. And right away, they started researching to understand where it came from because that farm was running already for 7 years and never got any break with PD. And but one thing paid their attention. So at the same time that farm got broken with PD, five more sites also got broken with PD, more or less in the same zone, not close to each other, but they have one thing in common: the same feed meal source. So then that paid their attention. Then they went backwards, swabbing trucks and silos in the farm, so on and so forth. And then they found the virus in the feed bins, in the silos. Then going backwards, the trucks that deliver the feed just 3 days before the break. So they swabbed the truck, and they also understood the truck was contaminated with PD as well. And then they start understanding. So what was the source of that break? So and then not to go too long, but to summarize, these their losses by only that outbreak was over than $800,000 that for a 10,000 sow farm. That was about 2 years ago. Nowadays, they increased the cost. We can say that we are about $1 million for one single outbreak in a 10,000 sow farms regarding pregnancy losses and immunization of the herd, piglet mortality for sure, so on and so forth, not taking consideration the losses of piglet performance after weaning regarding those groups of piglets that went through the break, right? So on the other hand, in Asia, for instance, or let's say in Europe, for instance, when you have a farm hit by ESF nowadays, when you need to repop, if you just consider at the same kind of same size of farm, if you're saying about 10,000 sow farms, we are saying about $7 or $8 million losses just repop and to depop and repop that farms. So those losses are very expressive, and I think those large companies now they understand that the risk is in there. So, and I think more and more with those cases happening, I think everybody understands that they must have a feed mitigant as insurance to make sure they'll not be the next victim.
Good point. I mean, it really is an insurance, and it's a risk. You know, if a system gets a disease, it's demoralizing, but to your workers, but it's also very expensive. And so, as any insurance, you know, you're likely putting money in there for the chance of maybe something's going to happen, but to kind of mitigate that risk, as the product described. So now, how do you, as a nutritionist, and we look at all additives, and you as well, I know it's a tough question. How do you think about, I'm going to spend this money on this product for something that may or may not happen? But we always got to have ROI, it seems like, for any additive. So how do you kind of justify, or what's the thought process there?
Yeah, I understand that. I usually get these questions on daily basis, right? So, and the point is that, so unfortunately, we never know how many outbreaks we could have avoided if we have been using feed mitigant. So that's the main important thing, because it's very tough for us to understand what to be the ROI regarding something that you can't understand if that will happen or not. And also, unfortunately, at this point, we cannot digging in kind of improved performance that using a feed mitigant we're going to have. So at this point, we still are not in there, but we are working to understand better. So what's the impact also, not only regarding biosecurity thing, but also regarding improving performance when you use a feed mitigant in the feed. So that's not to be a very easy answer to give you, Jerry, but I'm sure that I think people can understand that it's very difficult to find a ROI why we don't know how many outbreaks you could have avoided while using a feed mitigant. That's basically as an insurance, right?
Yeah. I think it's in any risk management. You're trying to eliminate and reduce the odds of something occurring when that occurrence is so devastating, which is what a disease. If you get PERS, you get PED. If we can minimize that chance, it's very hard to put it in dollars and cents. What that return is going to be, because you don't know if you're going to be faced with it. But in the case that you are, it's definitely, if you knew you were going to get PERS and this was going to prevent it, this would be very cheap. And so it's as any insurance, you never know if you don't know the risk, you don't really know exactly. But we do know, we understand what that costs when we get diseases and how that impacts our bottom line for sure. So very good. I think made some good points here. I think it's something is everyone's mind. I think this is very relevant, particularly ASF, and we think about hopefully we're doing things to keep it out, but it's always easier to be proactive than it is when than be reactive. And so maybe this is something that I think there's going to be more consideration in how we prevent something rather than how do we react and try to address it once it's here. So very good. Well, our time's growing near here, and we got 3 questions we always ask all of our guests, and
it's time for our famous 3. An animal nutrition technology company offering innovative products and new applications for the swine industry. The combination of AB Vista enzymes, technical services, and nutrition expertise provides the industry with new opportunities to further improve production efficiencies. Fiber is receiving renewed interest due to its influence on the microbiome, and AB Vista has brought together research experts to discuss the industry's knowledge of fiber functionality and to introduce a Stimbiotic, targeted to improve fiber digestion. To request access, contact NAM at abvista.com. That's NAM at abvista.com.
I'm gonna give you a shot here. What's your favorite, Francisco? What's your favorite resource?
So for sure, my favorite resource always has been the people, right? Because I think when we work as a team, as a group, we always can learn from each other. So we also can motivate each other to looking for more information or to grab something else to bring to the team and so on and so forth. I think that's my main resource is be able to work as a team. So the people around of us can be always the main resource for us. I think that's important.
Totally agree, 100%. It's we don't. I always tell people I don't have to be smart. I just need to know some smart people. So you can always find somebody. You got a good team, a good network. You can find somebody that's got the right answer for sure.
That's right. Correct.
Yeah. Our second question is, thinking back on your career, who do you think maybe was your most influential person on your career?
Oh, I think it's not a very difficult answer, that one. Happily, I had the opportunity to cross the path with Dr. Joe Corner for many, many, many times. I think the industry knows him very well, all of his contribution across his career, right, to all of the swine industry, not only here in the US, but across the globe. That's what I mean, because I know we had the opportunity to work together in Russia several years ago, and then we had the opportunity to work together in a few customers here in the US, and then in Vietnam as well, and in Asia, another opportunity in Latin America. So I always have been learning a lot from him, and also how he does the connections very fast, and some other people from his team or so on that can help you as well. So for sure, that Dr. Joe Corner.
Very good, very good. Our last question: What do you think are the characteristics of successful people in our industry? What are some of the maybe in your field? What you think are the characteristics that you find in successful people?
Oh, I think all of the 3 questions are very correlated, right? So when you think of that, those successful people, they must understand, they must help each other. So when you can see those people trying to work a little bit by themselves, we cannot see going that far. But when you see people rely on each other and really understand they need each other to raise them up, so I think things go completely different. So I trust to be successful, you must understand, you must know how to work as a team. So you should never try to hide things and just, this is better, that's my secret, so on and so forth. I mean, regarding my experience, always when I share that secret, so I always someone who shared two secrets with me, so I learn even more. That's my thing.
Yeah, always for sure. Two heads better than one, and I always find you can a lot of times you think about something, you're trying to tackle a problem, and somebody else will see something, have a different perspective that you hadn't even thought about, and so it's really I love talking to people, and I love just listening and trying to apply, and we need each other to try to hopefully solve some of our problems that we have today. Very good. Well, very good. Well, Francisco, it's been a pleasure talking to you today. Good. Hopefully, I get to run into you soon, somewhere down the road. But I appreciate the work you're doing, and this is, like I said, a very relevant topic. Something that I think most producers here are trying to figure out how they're going to manage, through these pathogens and diseases that we're faced with today. And it's not that if you're going to be faced, it's when you're going to face these things. So, what's the best, most economical way of doing that? So very good. But I hope, my friend, I hope to see you soon.
Thanks so much, Jerry. Thanks for having me here. It was a great talk. I appreciate that. See you soon.